The night before, her body was not hers. Mara Lane had been forced to serve again and again until her spirit felt torn apart. Hands pinned her down. Voices cursed her cries. Laughter drowned her pain. Her wrists burned from rope. Her cheeks swelled from the slap that silenced her begging. Fear ruled her world, but even the cruelest prison makes mistakes. That night, when drunken men brawled inside the brothel, the back door was left unbarred. The storm of fists became her one chance at freedom. She ran, barefoot and broken. She clutched a filthy white cloth around her body and a small leather ledger stolen from the madam's desk. Names, debts, secrets that could ruin men of power. The night stretched merciless. Every sound made her flinch. Every shadow made her heart pound. Her breath cut sharp in her chest, but still she ran, as if the earth itself chased her. Hours passed. The sky softened from black to gray, then to gold. By sunrise, her body was failing. The desert sun scorched her skin, already marked with bruises. Her throat burned dry. Her legs trembled, her vision blurred. She had no map, no plan, no sense of direction, only the will not to die in that brothel. Then she saw it, a ranch house on the horizon. Wooden fences, a horse grazing, smoke curling from a chimney. To her, it was no less than a fortress, no less than heaven itself. Her steps faltered across dry grass. Her knees buckled once, then twice. The ledger slipped, but she clutched it back as if it were her soul. With one last push, she reached the porch. Her body gave out. Her hand struck weakly on the door before she collapsed. Inside, Eli Garner heard the sound. He was 50, broad-shouldered, his face lined by years of sun and sorrow, a widower who had buried laughter long ago. He opened the door and found her there, broken and gasping, bruises painted across her skin like cruel art. Her lips parted. Her voice was no stronger than a whisper. "Don't judge, please." Eli crouched. He lifted the edge of the torn cloth. The sight froze him. Bruises deep and dark. Rope burns on her wrists, swelling on her cheek. This was not shame. This was survival. He draped his coat across her shoulders and lifted her head for water. His voice was steady, low, certain. "You are safe here." Her tears came at last, spilling down her face. Her hands clutched his sleeve like a lifeline. "Please, don't let them take me back." Eli looked at her, then out across the wide open land. He knew men would follow, men who claimed her as property, men who would spill blood to keep their secrets. The choice stood heavy before him. Take her in and risk war with Virgil Sloan, the brothel master, or close the door and let her fate be sealed. And so the question stands, when those men ride to reclaim her, will Eli fight to protect her, or will silence speak again? The sun climbed higher, warming the porch where Mara lay. Eli carried her inside, slow and careful, as if she might break in his arms. He set her on a chair by the table, handed her a cup of water, and waited. For a long while she said nothing. Her eyes kept darting toward the door, toward the window, like a rabbit expecting hounds. Eli busied himself with the stove, stirring a pot of stew that had been simmering since dawn. The smell of beef and onion filled the small room. When he set a bowl in front of her, her hands shook so bad she almost spilled it. "Eat," he said, plain and steady. She looked up, as if she could not believe the word had been meant for her. Then she took one spoonful, then another. By the third bite, tears rolled down her face. Eli did not ask why. He knew. After a while she spoke. Her voice was low, rough from nights of crying. "They will come for me." She gripped the edge of the table. "They always come." Eli sat across from her, leaning forward. "Not while you are under my roof." The words sounded simple, but Mara stared at him like he had just promised her the moon. That afternoon, she tried to help him mend a saddle. Her hands fumbled with the leather, but Eli showed her slowly, guiding without touching more than needed. At one point, the rope slipped through her fingers and she flinched hard, expecting a blow. Eli's voice cut the silence. "Out here, rope is for horses, not for people." For the first time, she almost smiled. Later, as the sun dropped lower, she reached inside her cloth and pulled out the small leather book. She placed it on the table between them. Her fingers lingered on it like it was fire. "They kept this hidden," she whispered. "Names, dates, how much each man paid, who paid the sheriff to look the other way. All of it, not Ada. Though she was too new, too stubborn. This was about the sheriffs before her, the ones who took coin and kept silent." Eli turned the pages. The writing was rough but clear. Men of power. Men with influence. It was more than filth. It was proof. His jaw tightened. He knew the kind of storm this little book could bring. Eli tore a few blank sheets from his ledger and copied down names and numbers by hand, his pen steady even as his jaw clenched. If the book was ever lost, these pages would still speak. Mara leaned closer. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "If they find out I took it, they won't just drag me back. They will bury me where no one will ever find me." Her eyes searched his. "Do you believe me?" Eli closed the book, slow and firm. "I believe you." The room went quiet. Outside, the horse stamped in the dust. A crow called from the fence line. Mara's shoulders lowered just a little, the first breath of trust settling in her chest. But Eli's mind was already working. If Virgil Sloane knew this book was gone, he would not stop at sending one man. He would come himself, and he would not come alone. So Eli reached for the book again, placed it in a drawer, and looked her straight in the eye. "If they ride out here, we will not face them alone." She frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" Eli leaned back, his eyes fixed on the fading light outside. "There's one law in this county I still trust. Sheriff Ada Collins. If trouble rides, I'll send the signal. She'll come, and there it is. The question that will decide everything. Who will Eli call for help? And will that help arrive before Sloane's men do?" The day after Mara showed Eli the ledger, the ranch felt heavy. Every creak of the fence, every sound of hoofbeats in the distance made her jump. Eli kept working like always, but his eyes drifted toward the horizon more than usual. He knew trouble was coming. And trouble came sooner than he thought. Late that afternoon, the dust rose on the road. One rider, Virgil Sloane, his hat low, his smile wide, the kind of smile that makes a man's blood turn cold. He pulled his horse up by the fence and tipped his hat, like he owned the land already. Afternoon, Garner. Virgil called out, "I hear you're keeping something that belongs to me." Eli wiped his hands on a rag and stepped onto the porch. "What you're looking for is not here," he said. Virgil leaned forward in the saddle, his eyes sliding toward the window where Mara stood frozen. "There she is," Virgil hissed. "My little runaway. You know she signed a debt note. She's property until it's paid. Hand her over, Garner, or I'll have the law on you." Virgil yanked a crumpled paper from his coat, waving it like it was holy law, though the ink was smudged and the seal half torn. Eli stood firm. Eli glanced at the paper and saw the seal broken. The ink smudged beyond reading. It was nothing more than a scare tactic. "This ranch is mine. Nobody is property under my roof." Virgil's grin faded. He swung down from his horse and stepped closer. "You got a big mouth for a man living all alone. You think you can keep her from me?" In that moment, Virgil lunged. His hand reached for Mara through the doorway. Before she could scream, Eli caught Virgil's wrist, twisted it hard, and drove a fist into his chest. Virgil stumbled back, cursing. Mara, shaken but fierce, grabbed a rope from the wall and snapped it across Virgil's arm. The sting made him drop his knife in the dust. Eli kicked the blade away and pointed straight at him. "Ride back, Sloane. Next time you step on my land, you won't walk off so easy." Virgil spat into the dirt. "You think this is over? You just bought yourself a war." He mounted his horse and rode off, the dust trailing like a warning. Mara's knees nearly gave out. Eli steadied her, his face calm but his jaw tight. He knew Virgil would return, and not alone. The storm was only beginning. Now, if you're gripped by this moment and want to see how far this storm will reach, hit subscribe and stay with us, because what comes next will decide not just Mara's fate, but Eli's too. Next time, Virgil will return with more men, and Eli will need help from someone he has not called on in years, the sheriff. Will law and justice stand with them, or will the ranch fall before the fight even begins? The sun dropped low and painted the ranch in orange light. Mara sat by the window, clutching the ledger like it was the only thing keeping her alive. Eli walked the fence line with slow steps, scanning the road. He knew Virgil would not let today's fight go unanswered. As night settled in, the sound of horses carried on the wind. Not one this time, 4. Virgil and 3 rough men rode up, faces hard, rifles across their saddles. They did not come to talk. Eli stood firm on the porch. Mara hid behind the doorframe, her heart racing so loud she could hear it in her ears. Virgil swung down and smirked. Told you I'd be back, Garner. And this time you'll hand her over, or we'll burn this place down. Eli did not answer. Instead, he lit a lantern and raised it high toward the old water tower. A small flash answered back. The signal had been seen. Help was coming minutes later. The sound of more hooves rolled through the night. Sheriff Ada Collins and 2 deputies rode in fast, rifles ready. She slid off her horse and strode forward, coat sweeping behind her. Evening, Sloan. You picked the wrong ranch, Virgil cursed. But Ada raised her hand. You've been warned before. Now I see you with witnesses, weapons, and threats. That ledger you're chasing will speak louder than your lies. The standoff cracked when one of Sloan's men lunged. Eli stepped forward, blocked the blow, and shoved him into the dirt. A deputy tackled another, wrestling his rifle away. Virgil grabbed Mara's arm, yanking her forward, but Mara snapped the thonged rope across his wrist. He howled and dropped his pistol. Eli kicked it aside and locked Virgil down, Ada pressing cold iron cuffs on his hands. You're done, Sloan, Ada said, her voice like steel. Tonight you face charges of assault, abduction, and extortion, and tomorrow the judge will see the book. The men were bound and dragged toward town, cursing into the dust. The ranch grew quiet again. Mara stood trembling in the porch light, her breath unsteady. Eli touched the brim of his hat and looked at her. No words needed. For the first time in years, she felt like the ground under her feet was solid. But even as Virgil was taken away, one truth gnawed at her. That ledger carried more names than Sloan's, names of men in power. Men who would not go down easy. And that leads us to the next part. What happens when the law itself is forced to face its own dirty secrets? The dust settled after the fight. The ranch stood quiet again. The only sound the steady breath of the horses tied at the fence. Mara leaned against the doorway, her chest rising and falling, her eyes following the men as the sheriff dragged them toward town. For the first time since she fled, she was not running. She was standing still, and she was safe. Eli stepped closer, his voice low. You can breathe now. They're gone. Mara nodded, but her tears fell fast. They were not tears of fear this time. They were tears of release, of something long buried breaking free. At dawn, she walked into the yard with the old white cloth in her hands. It was torn, filthy, a symbol of shame that had clung to her like chains. She washed it in the trough until the water ran clear. Then she hung it on the fence post, where the wind could claim it. Her voice was steady. I don't need to hide behind this anymore. Eli watched from the porch, his hat in his hand, his eyes, so often stern, now softened. He had carried his own losses for years, but in this moment he knew life could still give back. Stay here if you want, he said. This ranch can be your home too. Mara turned, the morning sun catching her face. For the first time, she smiled without fear. She walked to him, her hand finding his. It was not just gratitude. It was trust, maybe even love, born in the harshest soil but alive all the same. The story of Mara and Eli reminds us of something bigger. We all carry scars. Some are seen, some are hidden, but scars are not the end of us. Sometimes the right hand reaching at the right moment can change a life forever. So here's the question for you. If someone broken and afraid came to your door today, would you turn them away, or would you be their shelter? And when the storms of life ride against you, will you stand, or will you let silence speak for you? If this story touched you, give it a like. It helps more than you know. And if you want more Wild West tales that stir the heart and bring lessons worth keeping, make sure you subscribe right now and join us for the next ride. Because out here on the frontier, every choice, every fight, every act of mercy writes a story worth remembering.